I used to believe that silence in a house meant peace. At 73, you learn to appreciate quiet things. The hum of a refrigerator that's just old enough to sound alive. The soft ticking of a wall clock you bought in 1998 and never replaced. Even the slow drip of a kitchen faucet. Though that one, I admit, test your patience after midnight. My mornings begin at 6:40 a.m. not by choice. My body simply refuses to sleep longer, as if it still expects me to show up at the warehouse by 8. I sit on the edge of my bed for a full minute before standing. Knees first, then back, then the rest of me. Routine is a kind of dignity when everything else has been taken. Coffee comes next. Always the same. 2 scoops of Maxwell House water just before boiling, poured into the old stainless steel filter my wife insisted we keep even after we could afford something modern. The smell fills the kitchen in a way that feels like memory. Warm, slightly bitter, dependable. Helen liked it stronger. I still make it her way. The kitchen itself hasn't changed much since 2007. Oak cabinets, slightly warped near the sink. A white G microwave with a yellowing keypad. A small radio on the windowsill that only picks up one clear station on a good day. I keep it on anyway. Background noise helps. It was in that kitchen on a Tuesday morning, April 12, 2024, at exactly 7:18 a.m., that my son Daniel first said the words that would cost me nearly everything. "He shouldn't be worrying about bills anymore, Dad." He stood by the fridge, scrolling through his phone, thumb moving fast. Always moving. His wife, Karen, was at the table, tapping something into a tablet I didn't recognize. Sleek, silver, probably expensive. I remember the way she smiled without looking up. "We can handle all that for you," she added. "It's just easier." Easier. That word tends to hide things. "I've been paying my bills for 50 years, I said, pouring coffee into 3 mugs out of habit. One for me, one for Daniel, one for Karen. She never drank it. Daniel shrugged. "Yeah, and you've done great. But things are online now. Auto-pay apps, fraud protection. It's not like it used to be." I placed the mug in front of him. He didn't touch it. Karen finally looked up, her smile precise, almost rehearsed. "We're just worried about you," she said. "Last month you forgot to pay the electricity bill, didn't you?" I frowned. "No, I didn't." Daniel exchanged a glance with her. A quick one. The kind people think you don't notice. "There was a late fee," he said. $1.45. $45. It's a small number. Small enough to feel embarrassing. Small enough to make you doubt yourself. "I must have missed it," I said slowly. Karen reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Cool fingers. No warmth in them. "That's exactly what we mean," she said softly. "You shouldn't have to stress about these things anymore." Stress. Another convenient word. By the end of that week, April 15th, 2024, 3:42 p.m., according to the email confirmation Karen insisted on printing, I had signed over limited financial assistance access. That's what the document said. Limited assistance. I remember the pen felt heavier than usual. From that point on, the changes were subtle. At first, my pension $3,850 a month continued to arrive on schedule. Social Security added another $2,100. I had always been careful. After Helen passed, I reduced expenses. No travel. No unnecessary purchases. The house was paid off in 2019. I should have been comfortable. Instead, by June, I found myself hesitating at the grocery store over $6.99 pack of salmon. "That seems high," I muttered to myself, standing under fluorescent lights that made everything look slightly unreal. It wasn't the salmon. It was the number in my account. Lower than it should be. Not dramatically. Not enough to panic. Just off, like a clock that runs 3 minutes fast. You notice it, but you don't fix it right away. Maybe it's the utilities, I told myself. Summer rates, air conditioning, normal things. That's what I thought. Until July 3rd. I remember the date because it was the day before Independence Day, and the bank was closing early. I had gone in to withdraw $500 cash for some repairs. My faucet, ironically, had finally earned attention. The young man at the counter, Eben, his name tag said, typed something into his computer, then paused. "Mr. Halpern," he said carefully, "do you recognize these transactions?" He turned the screen slightly toward me. I leaned in, and for a moment I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the number, $9,600. Monthly, repeated, consistent, elegant, almost I straightened slowly, my hand still resting on the counter. No, I said, and that was the first honest thing I had said about my finances in 3 months. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. Evan didn't rush me. That's what I remember most clearly. He didn't start explaining, didn't fill the silence with polite banking phrases. He just let the numbers sit there between us, glowing on the screen like something that had always been true. I had simply refused to see it. Would you like me to print the last 3 months? He asked after a moment. Yes, I said. My voice sounded organized, calm, as if we were discussing plumbing or weather. Inside, something had already begun to shift. The printer hummed behind him. Papers slid out in different sheets. Transactions, dates, merchant names. All of it laid out with a kind of precision that leaves no room for interpretation. June 2nd, $3,200. Nordline Interiors. June 9th, $1,450. Apple Store, Lakeside Mall. June 14th, $2,780. Travel Now, Premium. June 21st, $2,170. Designer Closet NY. And at the bottom, total, $9,600.43. I flipped to May. Different stores. Same pattern. April. The same. Do you see the authorization method here? Evan pointed gently to a column on the right. All transactions were approved through a linked device. Same device each time. A phone. I asked. Yes, sir. I nodded slowly, though I wasn't looking at him anymore. Daniel had set that up. Auto pay is safer, Dad. Karen had said that. Safer. I folded the papers carefully, aligning the edges like I used to do with invoices back in the warehouse office. Old habits don't disappear. They just wait. Can I get copies of everything since April 15th? I asked. Evan hesitated. Just slightly. Of course. It might take a few minutes. I'll wait. I sat down in one of those plastic chairs near the window. Outside, the afternoon sun made everything look overly bright. Cars, people, even the sidewalk seemed exaggerated, like a stage set. Inside, it was quiet except for printers and keyboards. I looked at my hands. They didn't shake. That surprised me. You always imagine moments like this differently. Louder, more dramatic, anger maybe, or confusion. But what I felt was clarity. Cold, clean clarity. By the time I got home, it was 2:17 p.m. I remember because the microwave clock blinked 2:16 when I walked in, then changed as I set my keys down. The house smelled the same as always, coffee. With a faint trace of lemon cleaner Karen had started bringing over to help. I placed the bank statements on the kitchen table. Didn't touch them again. At 5:42 p.m., I heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway. A smooth engine. Too smooth for something bought on a tight budget, as he liked to say. Karen's voice came first as they stepped inside. We should have just ordered the set, Daniel. The individual pieces end up costing more. She stopped when she saw me. Oh, she said lightly. You're home early. I went to the bank, I replied. Daniel froze for half a second, then recovered. Quick. Everything okay? I gestured toward the table. Sit. That got his attention. They both sat. I stayed standing. It felt appropriate. I slid the papers across the table. The top page stopped right in front of Karen. She looked down, and for the first time since I'd known her, her smile didn't come. What is this? She asked. That, I said, is $9,600. Daniel leaned in, scanning the page. His jaw tightened, but not in surprise, in calculation. That's not, he started. Monthly, I added. Silence. A long one. Karen exhaled slowly, then leaned back in her chair. Okay, she said. Let's not overreact. Overreact. I almost smiled. You have access to my accounts, I said. Explain it. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Dad, it's not what it looks like. It looks like $28,801.29 over 3 months, I replied. So I'm curious what else it could be. Karen's tone sharpened. We've been managing your finances, she said. That includes reallocating funds. Reallocating, I repeated. Yes, investing in things that benefit the family. The family, I said quietly. Daniel leaned forward now, his voice taking on that familiar edge, the one he used when he thought I was being difficult. You live here. We take care of you. This is all connected. I looked at him. really looked, and for a brief moment, I saw something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. Not concern, not responsibility, entitlement. Clean, simple, unapologetic. That's my money, I said. Karen crossed her arms. It's sitting there doing nothing. There it was, not hidden, not softened, just said. Something inside me settled into place. A final piece clicking where it always should have been. I see, I said. And this time I did. I didn't argue with them that evening. That's important to understand. At my age, you learn that arguments are often a form of charity. You give the other person a chance to explain themselves, to soften the truth, to dress it up in better language. I wasn't feeling charitable. Instead, I made dinner. Simple, mechanical. 2 eggs, slightly overcooked. Toast in the old toaster that burns the left side more than the right. Butter, real butter, not the low-fat spread Karen had started buying for everyone's health. They stayed in the kitchen while I moved around them. Karen opened cabinets, louder than necessary. Daniel checked his phone. Neither of them mentioned the papers still lying on the table. At 6:18 p.m., Daniel tried again. Dad, you're blowing this out of proportion. I flipped the egg. Am I? It's not like we're stealing from you, he said. We're just using the money more efficiently. Efficient. That word belongs in factories, not families. I turned off the stove. Do you know what I used to do for a living? I asked without looking at him. He sighed. You've told me, Dad. Warehouse operations. 41 years, I said. Inventory control. Every box in, every box out. Numbers had to match. Always. Karen muttered something under her breath. I caught one word, obsessive. I plated the eggs. When numbers don't match, I continued, it means one of 2 things. A mistake or theft. Silence again. I sat down across from them and began eating. Slowly, deliberately. It's a strange thing, how ordinary actions can feel like statements. You really think we'd steal from you? Karen asked finally. I looked up. I think you already have. Daniel's chair scraped sharply against the floor as he stood. This is insane, he snapped. After everything we do for you. What did you do for me? I interrupted. That stopped him, not because of the question, because I didn't raise my voice. I just asked it, plain. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Karen stepped in, smoother, more practiced. We handle your bills. We make sure everything runs smoothly. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. I didn't ask for that, I said. You needed it. No, I replied. You wanted it. That landed. You can always tell when truth lands. It doesn't make noise, but it changes the air. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. You're being paranoid, he said. These purchases, some of them are investments. Furniture, electronics, things that increase overall household value. Whose household? I asked. He didn't answer. Because we both knew the answer. Mine. This house, paid off in 2019, every nail and pipe accounted for, had quietly become something else in their minds. A shared resource, a pool of money, a convenience, a solution to their lifestyle. I want full access back, I said. Karen's expression hardened instantly. That's not a good idea. I almost admired the speed of it. No, she said firmly. You'll forget payments. You'll get scammed. You don't understand how these systems work. I understand numbers, I said, and I understand signatures. Daniel stopped pacing. Are you threatening us? He asked. There it was. Not guilt, not apology, defensiveness. I folded my napkin and placed it beside the plate. No, I said, I'm correcting something. Karen leaned forward slightly. We're trying to help you. I stood up, and I'm trying to help myself. I gathered the bank statements from the table, tapped them into a neat stack, and walked toward the hallway. Dinner's getting cold, Daniel called after me. His voice edged with frustration. I paused. Without turning around, I said, so is trust. Then I went to my room and closed the door. At 7:03 p.m., I sat at my desk, the same desk where I had paid every bill, balanced every account, and planned every expense for decades. The lamp cast a narrow circle of light. The rest of the room stayed in shadow. I placed the papers in front of me. April 15th. That was the date, the beginning. I opened my drawer and took out an old notebook. Black cover, worn edges. Inside, neat columns of handwriting, years of records, all in my own hand. I turned to a blank page, wrote the date, then slowly Carefully, I began to list every transaction, not because I needed to understand it, but because I needed to prove it to them, to the bank, and most importantly, to myself. The next morning, I didn't make coffee. That, more than anything, told me something had changed. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table at 6:52 a.m., a glass of water in front of me, the notebook open, pen aligned perfectly along its edge. The house was quiet, too quiet. No footsteps upstairs. No running water. No artificial concern drifting down the hallway. They were sleeping, or pretending to. At 7:15, I opened my laptop. A Dell Inspiron from 2016, slow to start, louder than it should be, but reliable in the way old things tend to be when they've never been pushed beyond their purpose. I typed in the bank's website manually, not from memory, from the printed statement. Carefully, deliberately. The login page looked different than I remembered. Cleaner, simpler, more dangerous in its simplicity. I entered my credentials. The password worked. That surprised me. What surprised me more was what came next. A message. Two-factor authentication enabled. Code sent to registered device. Registered device. Not mine. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then closed the laptop slowly. So, it wasn't just access. It was control. Complete. I stood up, walked to the sink, and turned the faucet. The drip I had meant to fix weeks ago continued its quiet rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I let the water run longer than necessary, just to drown it out. By 8:10 a.m., Daniel came downstairs. He stopped when he saw me, already dressed. "You're up early," he said. "I've always been up early," I replied. He nodded, opening the fridge. "We should talk about yesterday." "No," I said. "We shouldn't." That caught him off guard. He turned, a bottle of orange juice in his hand. "Dad, you're making this into something it's not." "I agree," I said. "It's simpler than that." Karen appeared a few minutes later. Phone already in her hand. Thumb moving. Always moving. "Morning," she said, without looking at me. "Good morning," I replied. There was a time when I meant it. Now it was just accurate. "I'm going out," I added. Daniel frowned. "Where?" "The bank." Karen finally looked up. "That's not necessary," she said quickly. Too quickly. "It is to me." She set her phone down, screen still lit. "We can handle whatever you need," she said. "That's the whole point." I picked up my jacket from the chair. "That," I said, "is exactly the problem." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't do something stupid," he muttered. I met his eyes. There it was again. Not concern. Fear. Not for me. For something else. "I've spent 73 years avoiding stupid decisions," I said. "I don't plan to start now." I left before they could answer. At 9:02 a.m., I was sitting across from a woman named Patricia Klein, Senior Account Manager, according to the plaque on her desk. Her office smelled faintly of vanilla and printer toner. I placed my notebook and the printed statements in front of her. "I believe my accounts have been misused," I said. She didn't interrupt, didn't rush, just like Evan the day before. "Good bank. Good training. Can you walk me through what access was granted and to whom?" she asked. I slid the April 15th document toward her. She read it carefully, twice. Then she nodded. "You authorized limited access," she said. "But this," she tapped the transaction list, "goes beyond bill management." I thought so. She turned her monitor slightly, much like Evan had done. "This device," she said, pointing to a line of data, "was added the same day. Full authorization token that effectively allows transaction approval. Without me? With you," she said calmly. "But not by you." I let that settle. Words matter. At 9:26 a.m., she asked a question that changed everything. "Would you like to revoke all access immediately?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I was unsure, because I understood what the answer meant. War. At my age, you don't use that word lightly, but you recognize it when it arrives quietly, dressed as paperwork and signatures. "Yes," I said. Her nod was small, professional, but final. "Then we'll begin," she replied. And just like that, they stopped managing my money, and I started managing them. They found out faster than I expected. At 10:14 a.m., as I was still sitting in Patricia Klein's office, my phone buzzed. "Daniel." I let it ring, then again, and again. By the fourth call, Patricia glanced at the screen and raised an eyebrow. Not judgmental, just observant. Family, she asked. Yes, I said. Management. That earned the faintest hint of a smile. At 10:22, a message came through. Call me. Now. Short. No dad. No pretense. I placed the phone face down on the desk. Please continue, I said. Patricia nodded and turned back to her screen. We've revoked device authorization, she explained. All pending transactions are frozen. There are also 2 scheduled payments, both flagged for review. Amounts? I asked. She clicked. $4 $200 to Nordline Interiors and $3,850 to Travel Now Premium. Scheduled for tomorrow. I exhaled slowly. Even now, even after yesterday, they were still spending. Cancel them, I said. Done. At 10:31 a.m., my phone rang again. Karen this time. I answered. Not because I wanted to, because timing matters. What did you do? She demanded immediately. No greeting. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the strain underneath. I went to the bank, I said. I just got 10 fraud alerts, she snapped. My phone is blowing up. That must be inconvenient, I replied. A sharp inhale on the other end. You had no right. No, I interrupted quietly. You didn't. Silence. Breathing. Then Daniel's voice in the background. Give me the phone. A rustle. Dad, he said, sharper now, anger stripped of disguise. Reverse it. Now, I don't think I will. You're overreacting. This is going to cause serious problems. For whom? I asked. For all of us, he shot back. I looked at Patricia. She was typing, calm, efficient, as if none of this existed. Daniel, I said, come to the bank. What? Come here, I repeated. Bring Karen. We'll discuss it properly. Another pause. Then suspicious. Why? Because, I said, I like witnesses. That did it. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he muttered. The line went dead. At 10:58 a.m., they walked in, together, fast. Karen first, heels sharp against the tile, posture rigid. Daniel right behind her, jaw set. Eyes already scanning the room until they landed on me, then on Patricia, then on the papers. Good, I said, standing slowly. You made it. Karen didn't sit. What is this? She demanded, gesturing at the desk, the office, the entire situation. This, I said evenly, is where we clarify things. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat down hard. You froze our accounts, he said. I corrected access, I replied. Patricia spoke then, her tone professional, neutral. Mr. Halpern requested a review of account activity and revoked third-party authorization this morning. Karen turned to her sharply. We had legal access. Limited access, Patricia corrected calmly. For bill management. The transaction pattern suggests otherwise. Karen's face flushed. That's none of your business, she snapped. It became our business, Patricia said, when unusual activity was flagged. Daniel leaned forward. This is ridiculous, he said. We're his family. I nodded. Yes, I said. You are. I slid the printed statements across the desk again, which is why I'm giving you a chance to explain. Here, now, in front of someone who understands numbers. Karen laughed. A short, brittle sound. Explain what? That we used money sitting idle? That we improved our living conditions? That we... You spent $28,801.29, I said. The number cut through her words like a blade. Silence fell. People in nearby offices shifted. Not obvious, but noticeable. A public place has its own kind of gravity. Daniel lowered his voice. You're embarrassing us. I looked at him. No, I said. I'm documenting you. That was the moment. The shift. Not loud. Not dramatic. But final. Karen's composure cracked first. You think this is going to end well for you? She said quietly. I met her gaze. I think, I replied, already has. And for the first time since April 15th, they had nothing to take from me. The room didn't explode. No shouting. No dramatic exits. No overturned chairs. That's the thing about real consequences. They rarely arrive with noise. They settle in quietly, like dust, and suddenly everything looks different. At 11:07 a.m., Patricia printed another set of documents. These, she said, placing them neatly in front of me, are formal dispute forms. If you believe funds were used outside the agreed authorization, you can file a claim. The bank will investigate. If necessary, it escalates. Escalates, Daniel repeated, his voice tight. To what? Patricia met his eyes without hesitation. To legal review. Karen let out a short, disbelieving laugh. You're not seriously doing this, she said, turning to me. Over some purchases? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I flipped through the forms. Page after page. Dates, signatures, declarations, structured truth. I said finally. Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice again, but the edge was gone now, replaced by something else. Urgency. Dad, think about this, he said. Once you file that, there's no going back. This becomes official. It already is, I replied. Karen crossed her arms, her composure slipping further. You'll ruin everything, she said. Our credit, our accounts. Do you even understand what this will do? I looked at her carefully. For the first time, I said, yes. That landed harder than any raised voice could have. Patricia spoke again, calm and methodical. Mr. Halpern, based on transaction volume and frequency, this may qualify as financial exploitation, particularly given your age and the nature of the authorization. The word hung in the air. Exploitation. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, that's not what this is. We had permission. For bills, I said. For management. Karen corrected sharply. For convenience, I added. For family, Daniel insisted. For $9,600 a month. I finished. Silence. At 11:19 a.m., I picked up the pen. The same kind of pen I had used on April 15th. Strange. How similar moments can carry completely different weight. Dad, Daniel said quietly. Not angry now. Almost pleading. I paused. Not for long. Just enough to acknowledge that something still existed there. A memory. A history. 40 years of being his father doesn't disappear in a morning. But it doesn't excuse the present either. You should have asked, I said. Then I signed. One page. Then another. Each signature steady. Precise. By the third, Karen stood up abruptly. This is insane, she said, grabbing her bag. You're choosing money over your own family. I looked up at her. No, I said calmly. I'm choosing not to be used by it. She stared at me for a second longer, then turned and walked out, heels striking the floor harder than before. Daniel didn't follow immediately. He stayed seated, staring at the papers. You're really doing this, he muttered. I already did. He let out a slow breath, then stood. You think this is going to fix things? He asked. I considered that. No, I said. I think this ends them. That was the truth. Not cruel, not emotional, just accurate. He nodded once, a small, sharp movement. Then he turned and left. At 11:42 a.m., the paperwork was complete. Patricia gathered the documents into a folder. We'll begin the process today, she said. You'll be contacted within 48 hours. In the meantime, your accounts are secured. No external access. Thank you, I replied. I stood up slowly, feeling the familiar stiffness in my knees. Outside, the day was still bright, unchanged. People walked past the bank windows, carrying coffee, talking on phones, living their uninterrupted lives. Inside, mine had shifted completely. At the door, I paused. Ms. Klein, I said. She looked up. Yes. I thought for a moment, then nodded. Good training, I said. That earned a real smile. Good decision, she replied. I stepped outside into the sunlight. For the first time in months, everything that was mine actually was. The house felt different that evening. Not emptier, cleaner. That's the word that kept coming to mind as I stepped inside at 4:08 p.m., placing my keys in the small ceramic bowl Helen had bought sometime in the early 2000s. It still had a tiny chip on the rim. She used to say imperfections made things easier to trust. I stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. No voices, no footsteps upstairs, no television running in the background for no reason. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and somewhere in the kitchen, the steady tap, tap, tap of the leaking faucet. I walked, rolled up my sleeves, and fixed it. It took 12 minutes. A worn washer. That was all. Funny. The things you postpone when you think something else is more important. At 5:26 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Halpern, a calm male voice asked. Yes. This is Officer Grant, Financial Crimes Division. We've received a preliminary report from your bank regarding potential unauthorized transactions. I'd like to ask you a few questions. I sat down at the kitchen table. Of course, I said. The conversation lasted 23 minutes. Dates, amounts, authorization details, relationship to the individuals involved. I answered everything. Clearly, precisely. No emotion. When you reduce something to facts, it becomes much easier to carry. Thank you, Mr. Halpern. Officer Grant said finally. We'll be in touch. And for what it's worth, you did the right thing reporting this early. Early. I almost laughed, but I understood what he meant. At 6:02 p.m., another call. Daniel. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. His voice was different now, quieter. Dad, we need to talk. We already did. This has gone too far. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the ceiling. A faint crack ran along one corner. Nothing serious, just age. No, I said. It went exactly as far as it needed to. A pause. Then, Karen's accounts are frozen too. Do you understand what that means? Yes. She can't pay her credit cards. We have automatic payments, rent, leases. This is going to destroy us. I closed my eyes for a moment, not out of sympathy, out of recognition. Consequences have weight. Even when they belong to someone else, you can feel them. You should have thought about that in May, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. We were going to fix it, he said finally. We just needed time. How much? I asked. No answer. Another month? I continued. Another $9,600? That's not fair. I opened my eyes. It's exact, I said. His breathing was heavier now. You're my father. And you're my son. The words sat there between us. Equal, but not the same. You're really going to let this happen? He asked. I looked around the kitchen, the cabinets, the table, the old radio on the windowsill. Everything in this room had been earned, paid for, maintained. But I'm not letting it happen, I said. I'm stopping it. Karen's voice appeared in the background, sharp, panicked. Ask him if he can reverse it. This is insane. Daniel covered the phone, muffling her, then quieter. If you don't fix this, we're done. I considered that. Not emotionally, logically. I think, I said slowly, we were done on April 15th. The line went silent. Then, click. At 8:14 p.m., I made dinner. Soup. Canned. Nothing special. I ate at the table, alone. Not lonely. There's a difference. Afterward, I washed the dishes, dried them, and placed them back exactly where they belonged. At 9:03 p.m., I sat in my chair by the window. The street outside was calm. A few cars passed. Someone walked a dog. Ordinary life, uninterrupted. For months, I had felt something was wrong. Numbers slightly off. Details not aligning. A quiet discomfort I couldn't quite name. Now I could. And more importantly, I had done something about it. The house was silent again. But this time, it wasn't the kind of silence that hides things. It was the kind that tells you everything is finally in its place. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription.